Shooting the shiznit, shooting the shiznit. Best little wrestling podcast in the business. Your host BT and all his guests. You'll never know who he'll have next. Shooting the shiznit, shooting the shiznit. Best little wrestling podcast in the business. Shooting the shiznit.
All right. We're live from 304 Studios in Jonesboro, Arkansas. This is an stspod.club production. I'm BT, and my guest this is the flagship show, Shooting the Shiznit, thanks to Sleazy for that theme, is Morgan Williams. Morgan, how the hell are you?
Great. How are you, Brian?
Doing good. We talked right before we got started here. Me and you've been trying to do this since November sometime, right?
Yeah, I had the thing with my teeth the first time, and then it's not been work or it's just been some kind of cancellation after cancellation. So
It's been crazy. So you are the shoot brother of Matt Williams, and we've had him on the show before. How do you put up with Matt? Is my first question.
It's not easy. It's gotten easier the older I've gotten because I have no more hair to pull out anyway. So it's swimming uphill, you know.
There you go.
No.
Yeah. And I'm going to ask you the first question I asked Matt. And, since this podcast is mine, it's usually just all about me anyway. Not my guest. I wouldn't want it to be about my guest. When was the first time me and you met? Because we've met. I've been at matches with you there, but I can't remember the first time we met.
I started wrestling in 2002, October of 2002. I don't think you and I met until I started doing the Mr. Muscle thing, and that was
in ASWF. I was going to introduce you as Mr. Muscle, but me and you would be the only two people that would get that at first.
Oh no, I get crap over it all the time. That was Austin Lane's brain baby, and yeah, I haven't lived that down yet.
Awesome. So let's get started at the very front. You said you started wrestling 2002. Let's start way before that. What made you a wrestling fan when you was growing up? Who were your favorites and stuff like that?
So, me and Matt came up in the Bret Hart, Shawn Michaels era, and as a kid, HBK was like my go-to, and as an adult, Bret Hart has been it's like my I don't even know how to put that. I grew up and Bret Hart became my guy. Like basically, as a child, I flocked to Shawn, I think, because of his charisma and so on. But from an in-ring standpoint, I think Bret is the GOAT, at least for me.
And you started at what point during all that time were you guys? Did you decide, hey, I want to be a wrestler?
Oh, we were young. We were real young. I had to be 10, 11, 12. But when you're 10, 11, 12, the question is, how do you make that happen? That's
right.
Fantasy land that I'm living in. There's no way to make that work, but right place, right time kind of thing,
Right. Did you where did you go start your training at?
So I trained under Reggie Montgomery in Dixie.
I'm familiar. I actually been in that building a many a time. So yeah.
Dixie Dance.
Yeah.
was brutal, man. I trained in 2000 or 2001 there in Dixie. Matt did the majority of my training, but Reggie oversaw. And yeah, I love Reggie. One of my favorite people in the business to this day.
And when you started, when you started training, or before you started training, at what point did you say? Because I remember early in my, I guess, fandom, as you say, uh, that I knew it was. I didn't know how it worked, but I knew the business wasn't on the up and up. You know, I knew something was going on, but I didn't know how it was going on. At what point was you going to the internet? Was the internet strong then with the websites? Was you finding out things like? I remember a big deal for us, for me and my friends, was the real names. Oh man, we got the real names of a wrestler. That was a big deal, man.
Man, growing up, I didn't want the real name thing. That was finding out that Shawn Michaels' real name was Michael Hickenbottom was just like, oh my god. But as far as the finding out, being smartened up to it, and
yeah, but if it was knowing it was a work, when did you find that out?
Oh, I'd say that came pretty late because I didn't want to know. Like I shut that part of my brain off. I don't want to know. Don't just. I wanted it to be organic. I'd say 14 or 15, probably.
Yeah.
No.
And was there somebody just came up to you and said, hey, because I know I heard this so much when I was a huge fan, and everybody in my little hometown knew, Brian Trammell is a big wrestling fan. And my first personalized plate said wrestling, RASSLN, wrestling. So everybody knew I was the wrestling fan, but the first thing that they would say to me was, that's fake, right?
Oh yeah.
And I'll be like, it don't matter. It really don't matter. And I didn't want to hear about it. You just finally started learning about the inside of the business. No one just came up to you and said, hey, this is how it works.
No, I was a very isolated child, and that was nobody's fault but my own. But you can ask Matt. I was the kid that was sitting in my bedroom listening to Metallica albums and watching wrestling VHS. As long as I was left alone to my wrestling and music, that's all I really cared about, or baseball. So I didn't really communicate a whole lot, and not a whole lot of people communicated with me, and I liked it that way. So, yeah, I guess it was probably on a what are those things called in high school? Those pep rallies and whatnot.
Right.
We had a group come out of seniors one year, and they were dressed up as NWO when it was just Hogan, Hall, and Nash. And they did this little segment thing, whatever. And then I think somebody in the underclassmen was like, oh, well, that's a bunch of fake baloney anyway, and blah, blah, blah. Wait a minute,
Right.
But it kind of ignorant, but what are you gonna do?
With you
is.
And Matt both being in the business and you being trained and everything, did y'all keep that? Did y'all kayfabe your family, or was it one of those things where, hey, I'm not gonna get hurt kind of thing?
Dad was not a fan. Dad didn't like it. Let me get this damn dog letting outside. Give me a second. Dad was not a fan. He thought it was cool at first. but he ultimately felt like wrestling was a phase that we were ultimately going to grow out of. And then we both ended up taking bumps, you know, and
Right.
but we pretty well had to assure him that everything was going to be okay, you know. And of course, accidents happen and bumps and bruises and so on. And Dad's response would be, well, you know, if you weren't out there being an idiot, you know. So
my dad was always the worst thing in the world was going to happen to me. You know, instead of me saying I was going to get hurt, or he would say, "You're going to break your neck out there." I'm going to break my neck.
Yeah.
I'm not going. I'm not going to, you know, sprain my leg or my foot or anything, or turn my ankle. I'm going to break my neck. So he hated me doing anything. And when he was still alive, there was times where after he'd find out I was doing something, I would cancel because he was just stressing that I was going out to do that. And so it was one of those things where, you know, I wasn't any good. I wasn't a good wrestler. I could be a manager, but as a wrestler, I sucked. And so it wasn't like I had to do it kind of thing. And I did write down some, do what now?
Started out as a manager, and I was almost kind of, I don't want to say bullied into, but I was goaded into wrestling. I was, I managed Deadly one night, coming out at an Armory show. Came out with Deadly Dell, and we had good heat and everything, and got back to the locker room after that managing gig, and then, I don't remember who it was that approached me, and it might have been in Austin. So, well, how was it your first time out there? And I was like a crackhead. I had to have more, you know.
Yeah.
And
I tell the story, and you're going to feel what I'm fixing to say. So you go on the weekend. I remember doing a Friday night. I get off work. I do a Friday night show. I did 2 shows on Saturday, real early, like 6 o'clock. And then we went to the other town and drove to the other town.
Yeah.
We did the same show. So you did 2 shows. And then I went Sunday to somewhere else. That's 4 shows. I bled 3 out of 4 of those shows, you know, and so that's over with. I sat down Sunday afternoon after the shows. I watched football. I remember this just clear as day. I watched football, but when I get up to go to work to my shoot job the next day, it was the biggest disappointment ever. That adrenaline that you get on the weekends, being a weekend warrior, whatever you want to call it, if you've never done it, you don't understand it, but you understand it just like I do.
Oh yeah, dude. I'll be 40 in May, and now there are times where, you know, I want to sit home and drink a beer and watch my baseball and just leave me alone, you know. But
well, aren't you at the stage
Friday,
now? Kind of, you pick who you want to wrestle. I mean, if there's somebody out there you really want to work, then you'd say, "Yeah, I'll be there." If there's not somebody I really want to work, then I'll drink my beer and watch wrestling kind of thing. I mean, watch baseball.
Yeah, the last 2 weeks I worked with Draven Morrow, and I think he is just an incredible talent. I don't know how much of him you've seen.
I have not seen him in the ring. I see him on the podcast, on his podcast. He may not know this. He's probably going to watch this, but I'll listen to his podcast a lot. They'll do a live stream, and I'll just put it on in the background and listen to the guys. And then Idlewain, or Big Nasty Phil, mentioned him to me. He said, "Hey, you know, you guys do the same thing, kind of, blah blah blah." But yeah, I'll have to go out of my way to try to see some of his stuff. But you're like the 3rd or 4th person that says, "I love their look." Him and Warwolf, him and Bruce, their look is just really awesome. It looks really good. So you work just this area, right? You live not far from me, right? In Newport. Are you in Newport area?
I recently remarried in October, and I moved to Bradford.
Oh, okay. All right. Yeah.
Um,
But you just pretty much wrestled in this area. Did you ever get out of this area?
yeah, I wrestled for Greg Anthony for 4 or 5 years. And Greg for me is he's the best guy that I've ever been in the ring with, by far. And he runs a very clean cut, old school type promotion, and I always really enjoyed being there. I worked for Greg. That
Go ahead.
I worked for Greg and Matt Riviera. Saw a couple of the matches that I did over there in West Tennessee, and that afforded me the opportunity to get to work a couple of his CWA shows, and those are always really special.
You know, I always think about this, but is there some of the bigger names that you worked that just I don't want to say we mark out, but we're just happy to be able to get in the ring or do something. I think one of mine is I was able to do a thing with Bobby Eaton. And it was just one of those things where it was a spur of the moment. Hey, you want to do it? Get out there and do it. And it was Greg. Me and Greg was backstage, and Brian Thompson said something about, hey, do y'all want to do something with Bobby? And I told Greg, I said, get ready. We're fixing to do something with Bobby Eaton. He was like, huh? But that's one of those things I'm so glad I got to do.
Yeah, the Bobby Eaton is probably the nicest man that I've ever known in or out of the wrestling business ever. He came to WFAC and worked up there for a while, and I was living in Cherry Valley for a little while with some buddies of mine. And I would go in there to the Exxon and get gas, and Bobby would be in there about once a week, I would say, and getting a 30-pack. And me and Bobby knew each other from Adam. But we would sit there and talk shoot the crap for a good 10, 15, 20 minutes at a time, just sit there and catch up. He always treated me like I was, come up in the business with him, and God knows I couldn't be further from the truth. But
he was
Bobby
always
is
like that with everybody. Yeah, just awesome. Bobby was awesome. I saw some stuff when I was doing Wrestling Riot online. I went through it's still up, and people are still going to that website. I mentioned this earlier this week when I was recording, and I looked at the stats, and there's still like 15,000 people going to that website every month. I know that's not a lot, but it is a lot for a website that nobody is promoting at all.